last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
what's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM 1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Master Instructor Roundtable. We are live this week, and I'm here, Marty Miller with Wendy Batts. Wendy, how are you today?
I am doing great, Marty. How are you?
I'm good. Just, trying to get the words out of my mouth to get started. So hey, that's what happens when you're live. We're humans. We do it. But I'm excited. You put some work in this week. We always give people our contact information. You search out the NASM Facebook page, and we are back with questions from the group.
Yes. And this week I actually pulled some from my Instagram page too. So thank you guys for sending private messages to both Marty and I. We do our best to try to get back to you. So I'm sorry if there's ever any delays. I am trying to be better at checking social media. Because I'm like, oh, wow, there's 3 that I didn't even know I had. So just kind of bear with us. But no, this week we try our best to ensure that we mentor you guys the best way that we can. I know we're not doing some live workshops right now. So anytime we can do the questions from the group, we enjoy it. We are live. So if you guys have questions that you want to ask Marty and I, please be sure to put them in the comments and we will do our best to get them answered as we go along.
So Wendy, as we jump in here, we want our audience to know we have an NASM Certified Personal Trainers private page just for all of you. You do have to earn your credentials. So you will log into that, send a request, and then we will verify, or a team member will verify that you are credentialed, and then you're in. And Wendy, last time I checked, is it over 13,000 maybe right now?
I know there's a lot. So
yes, I'll check as we're here live. So, you get an opportunity to interact with other peers. You never know who you might meet up with in your area, but it's a great way to bounce ideas off each other. So make sure you check that out. And that's really the goal of the NASM CPT page, is to give you a home, an environment to network. Wendy talked about it. We loved doing live workshops back in the day. Things changed, and not that we're not going to be out there, but now with podcasts and some things we put on Instagram, and now our NASM Certified Personal Trainers Facebook page, you don't have to wait for a live event. You can now interact with peers. So that's the goal, is to get the best people together, have kind of like a think tank, and see where the conversations go. And then Wendy and I will go in there, as Wendy did this time, and pull some of those popular questions from the group.
Yeah, and the networking is amazing, because you never know. People are asking questions and you find out that they live right around the corner. So sometimes that's pretty interesting as well. So you just never know. You might meet on the page. But that's, like you said, that's the goal. And so it is the networking platform. We can't stress that enough. I mean, we are a very tight-knit community. And even though fitness is really big, it's really small. It's amazing how we can go somewhere and run into someone and say, hey, I know you, or I met you at a conference, or I took a workshop from you. And so I really love it when that happens, but you kind of have to get out there a little bit. And if you have questions, just know you're not alone. But it is, an intellectual interaction. So too, if you've got specific questions and you have questions about your own personal clients, and maybe you're not sure of the direction you should go on certain corrective exercises, that's a great place to ask. It helps you grow. We all try to chime in, and it's interesting to see the variation of answers that you might get. And as long as it follows the systematic progression, it's safe, it makes sense, then it just can help open doors and kind of maybe let you think a little bit differently than maybe you normally do. And like I said, just ask the questions.
Yeah. And Wendy, I checked 14,500 professionals. So it's grown.
Nice. Well, there you go.
We have 15,000 after today. So there is also Instagram. You got the NASM_fitness with in the 200,000 plus. So I'm one of the people that put content out there as well. So we have some great, snippets and Instagrammable information. So you have another resource as well, because personal trainers, we're visual learners. We like to see progressions and regressions of exercises. I've got a couple coming out on all three main phases of the model: stabilization, endurance, strength, endurance, and power. So hopefully you get some key takeaways. And then there's links to different things like our blog and different NASM podcasts as well.
100%. All right. So this is actually a question that came to me. So I will read it and then I will answer it because it was directly sent to me. But the question came from one of our listeners. His name's James. So James, thank you very much for listening and being a part of our Master Instructor Roundtable. But the question is I do listen to the Master Instructor Roundtable, and Wendy has mentioned using the Edge app. I also use it. However, it takes a lot of time to build a workout. Do you have any suggestions or tips on how to navigate the app faster to reduce this time? Now, I will say I have already answered this to James. However, this is a question that I get very often, and there's something that apparently people are missing. And what I do is I will go in and I will design different types of templates, if you will. So I have templates that are specific more for the ankle, if there's some dysfunction at the ankle, and that is the primary source of why I'm seeing some of the results in the assessment. I have some that are very targeted more for the hips or the lumbar-pelvic hip complex in general. Same thing for shoulders. I have certain exercises that I like to do for upper body workouts, lower body workouts, as well as just a total body workout. And what I end up doing is I will go in and just name it generically. And if you go to that program, so when you go into your app and you select and you save these workouts, right? So when you go in, you're going to go under workouts. So not exercises, because the exercises are the list of all the exercises that are in the database. But if you go into workouts, there are some that are pre-templated for you that NASM put in there. But any workout that you save will also be in that particular area. And you can go to whatever program you want. And if you swipe over to the right, there's an area that says duplicate or copy. And if I go and I select that duplicate, then what happens is I just rename it to Marty Miller's full body workout or whatever it is. And then I can easily go and edit, meaning I can add exercises to that. I can delete an exercise, change an exercise. I can make it more specific to Marty. But as I mentioned, with every single person, I always have them do tube walkings, forward and backward, side to side. I usually have them start out with some sort of bridge. And so what I do, I leave those exercises in the notes that I have in there because that's applicable to most of the individuals that I work with. And then I can just vary up or change certain things. Or if I know that they only have certain equipment, I can take out things that maybe they wouldn't be able to use and change it to something that they have available. And then I just rename it. I schedule it to that particular individual and I'm done. And so apparently that copy or duplicate tab or whatever, you have to swipe over to see it. You can delete the entire workout if you want. If you're like, I don't like this, I never use it. And so it's just a way for you to be able to make it simpler for yourself, to reduce the amount of time you're spending in the app, and also be able to use one multiple times. So that's how it works. As soon as you rename it, you save it. That template is still in there, but now the new program for Marty Miller would be in there as well.
Great. You got it all because you're the expert on that. So I'm going to leave it there. So question 2, what books would you say have helped your training or event, even your personal fitness journey the most? And why do you find them valuable? This can include books on training or the entrepreneurial side is on both, would be helpful. We did in the past podcast just on kind of like a book club, and man, I could spend 30 minutes on this. So I'm going to try to keep it short. Recently, Outlived by Dr. Peter Attia, because you really want to focus on that longevity space. But it's interesting. I forgot that this question was coming, and I just reordered this book. I read this back in 2005. You can see it's not that thin, Success Principles. It just gives you real easy bits and pieces on what successful people do, right? Taking responsibility and taking action and things like that. So it's something that sits on my desk. I I read it constantly and just keep flipping through it. And I just ordered another version because I gave one of the versions I had to one of my sons. Then I love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read all leadership stuff from John Maxwell, because at some point in your career, you may develop into a leadership position. So the fitness part's great, but then you have that leadership side of things that you need to develop if that's not your formal education background. So those are probably where I start, looking at success, motivation, business, and then now I'm reading more and more on longevity.
I love it. So that Marty goes completely different. Now, again, I am a 7 Habits fan as well. So I would say that's probably my number one when you're looking outside of just quote fitness itself, more for the personal growth. But I have to say, just because of what I do with the university, and I try to get a lot of individuals to understand, how the body works and the muscles itself. I am a big fan of Thomas Meyer's book, which is Anatomy Trains. That was an easy book for people to understand that might be new to fitness, that are trying to understand how the myofascial component works with the meridians, and it's really good, especially for manual therapists, but it also kind of allows you to see how everything really is interconnected. I'm a fan of Muscles. That's a book by Kindle. We use that a lot in some of our courses that are outside of NASM. Trying to think, there's Physiology of Sport and Exercise. I like that one. That one is by Kenny. And those are the ones, of course, NASM puts out new content, so I try to make sure that I go on the updated courses. There was one that is the GLP-1 course that was just released. Like, when I say just released, it just came out on LinkedIn. Brian Sutton put it on there, like, we did this. So Dr. Scott Cheatham was a big part of that. And I know, Marty, you and I were talking about doing a podcast on that and getting one of the subject matter experts to join us to talk about that course. But I'm always trying to read something. So therefore, I stay in the know. So you just never know that day what I might read. But the new PES textbook is what I'm currently, I would say, focusing on right now.
Very good.
One thing before we did get a question, before we move on to our question number 3, John James said, love the Edge. I have been using it a couple of months now. The overhead squat assessment is a valuable tool for program design. I also do assisted stretching. So seeing this helps pinpoint compensation. That is absolutely correct. And Carlos, this is great. Thanks for joining us, by the way. Marty, why don't you take number 3?
You got it. It says, hello, everyone. I've decided this year my goal is to lose a good amount of body fat and try to compete in a bodybuilding competition next year. I'm considering taking the NASM Physique and Bodybuilding program to help me understand the bodybuilding world a little bit better. My question is, would this course be helpful for my goal? Thank you. Absolutely yes, because there's some fundamental principles behind NASM that are going to stay. But you're starting to get into a physique sport. So things have to change. Me as an athletic trainer, every time I work with an athlete, there's some little nuances based on their sport. So when you look at this, if you're going to compete, I absolutely recommend taking this. The authors were amazing. They've competed. They know things that I don't know when you're looking at cutting weight and all of that stuff. I don't even pretend to know those things. But I did take this course because everybody should be looking at maintaining muscle mass. So when we look at the GLP-1s and sarcopenia or just aging, you're going to learn some stuff too that maybe you're not going to compete, but maybe that gives you just a little nudge to put on another 3 to 4 pounds of muscle mass, which is incredibly healthy. So I highly recommend it for you, but I also want people that are not even thinking about it to think about it a little differently, because muscle is the goal. And if you can find an edge, even if you're not going to compete, put on that muscle mass.
I'm going to piggyback that. It was one of those courses that when I took, I'm like, man, this goes pretty in detailed, because it does tell you how these are subject matter experts. These are people that do this for a living. So it wasn't Marty and I that went in and wrote the textbook. And so there's a lot of valuable information, and some of it may be a little bit of a review, but I thought most of it was pretty detailed. So I actually enjoyed that course a lot more than I thought I would, because again, this was not really my my thing. There was another question that came up. Angel asked, how do we join the NASM? I think the group is what she's asking about. And if you go to Facebook and you look under NASM Certified Personal Trainers, there's a place where it says join, and then you will just click that. And then NASM on their side will look into your certification. And once they see that you are certified, then they allow you into the group. It's pretty simple. So just ask to join. So, all right, let's go to number 4. So if we go back to one question, I think we just skipped one. So if we go back to question 4, I just passed my NASM exam a few weeks ago. I'm currently a teacher desperately needing to transition out of the classroom, girl, I hear you, and into the gym. Any job advice for replacing my salary? All right, Marty. I mean, I could take this one, but I'm going to let you start.
I'll keep it short because there's so many intangibles there that we don't know, right? What is your ability to just cold turkey go? And or do you have some buildup of savings where you're like, yeah, it's just me. If I need to eat ramen noodles, not healthy, but you get my point. Canned tuna fish, how's that? We're personal trainers. I could do that. Or do I need to transition, right? So you got to look at, what you're currently comfortable with and your financial situation. But there's nothing wrong with having a side hustle, right? No one works 40 hours anymore. So maybe you find a job where you can work. Like I used to work Tuesday, Thursday nights at a private country club because I kind of had a feeling that eventually I would get the opportunity to go full time and become the director, and it worked out. So I worked long days on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I went from the physical therapy job over to the country club. So sometimes you have to do that. Some people have the ability to jump right in. But I would start interviewing, and when they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them, and you might be able to find a job where you can transition pretty quickly. But please understand, if you're moving into personal training, you could be starting at the bottom, meaning that there's going to be personal trainers that have a good book of business. So you're kind of have to fill in with the newbies or the odd shifts, things like that. And that's okay. That's going to be part of what you have to do. So, I would do that. Look at your situation, start interviewing. And if you're not ready to jump in full, see if you can find a little bit in your schedule where you can start practicing and getting some clients, and then you can ramp that up and then phase out of the other.
Yeah, I wish I could add more to that. But I mean, if you're not happy being a teacher, and it's hard. I mean, and again, I don't know what actually grade you're teaching or what you're dealing with in the classroom. I know that it can be extremely stressful. Myself being a full-time professor, I get it. I do have the ability to teach online, and it is asynchronous, so I can do other things throughout my day and still be able to focus on my students. However, like Marty said, I mean, if it is you're going into the classroom and you have to be there at certain hours of the day, it's very difficult to try to think of what you could do to get out, unless you just commit, like I'm getting out, I'm going to do this full time. Or like Marty said, maybe find a part-time hustle and then really just focus on fitness. But if you're still always just kind of dipping your toe in, it's really never going to work. And that's why we see a lot of trainers come into the industry and then leave. You've just got to just dive in and really hustle to get clients, but you will be able to quickly, if you're good and you're really trying to market yourself. Hopefully, I say hopefully, because again, I don't know your personality and I don't know where you live and I don't know the situation that you're in, but hopefully you would be able to replace your salary sooner than you think. But Marty, before we continue on, first of all, I want to say thank you to those that are watching Marty Miller and myself live today on the Master Instructor Roundtable. We are taking questions from the group that we pulled from either our Instagram or Facebook. We're also taking live questions, so please be sure to put those in the chat and we will do our best to get those answered. But before we go through and answer, Carlos, I will get your question next. But before we do, this episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations. Access free CEUs and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. So before we dive into our next question that we have on our PowerPoint, Marty, Carlos asked, A great question. Any recommendations for someone who is looking to expand their knowledge and training to start helping prep competitors for bodybuilding?
Yeah, the bodybuilding certification coach that we talked about not too long ago that NASM put out 2 years ago now.
I think
Physique
so.
and bodybuilding coach. It's phenomenal. It's designed exactly for that. So anybody interested, you have to take that. And then as I said earlier, if you're just joining, I mentioned this, even if you don't think you want to train physique and bodybuilding athletes or do it yourself, you might want to take it because it gives you some really cool insights on how to add some muscle mass, which we, at some point everybody struggles with. So getting those insights on how bodybuilders do it the right way, even when you're 50 some years old and need to try to gain 3 to 4 pounds of muscle, you'll have some insights there. So I highly recommend the Physique and Bodybuilding Coach course by NASM.
And I'm going to also chime in too, Carlos. I don't know if you know this, but NASM has a podcast that's specifically for bodybuilders. Andre Adams is the lead on that podcast, and he does those where you can also be able to go in and ask him specific questions if there's something that you're looking for. So be sure to look onto the NASM podcast page. You'll be able to see when his stuff goes live. You can also be able to submit different questions to him, and hopefully he'll be able to help you out. And he's really good, y'all. He always has winners in all different divisions, and he himself has gone through the process. So, and he was also one of our subject matter experts as well. So check him out if you get a chance.
Great point.
All right. And it's called Peak Physique Podcast, just in case you're wondering. So sorry, I forgot to throw that out there, Carlos. So there you go. Peak Physique, check it out. So Marty, I'm gonna go ahead and give you this question. I'll read it, but I'll have you answer it. But it says, "Hi, I hope someone can help me with some advice to solve why I can't lose fat. I weigh 99 kilograms, which is 218 pounds, with 33% body fat. Height is 180 centimeters and age 33. I do strength training program 5 days a week, 3 series of 4 to 8 reps for 4 exercises, and 2 hours of cardio lifts a week, plus 10,000 steps a day. I'm consuming 1,700 calories divided into 171 grams of protein, 56 grams of fat, 131 grams of carbohydrates. I drink more than 2 liters of water a day. Unfortunately, however, I can't lose fat, and my weight on the scale doesn't budge. The waist circumference does not decrease either. I don't know what to do to start losing fat. I hope someone can help me. Thanks."
So a couple things jump out right away. So first and foremost, we don't know age, right?
No, he said 33. They're 33.
Oh, 33. Okay, perfect. So you're still in that age where, right, metabolism shouldn't have changed drastically. So that's one thing. First and foremost, when's the last time you got a physical? Because there are things, sometimes people have hormonal or other thyroid issues, etc. So they just keep pouring into the fitness, but because you're that young, sometimes they don't go to the doctor and get this checked out. Also, I would, in no particular order, check with a registered licensed dietitian, because, even though you're picking that 1,700 calories, that might be something where they may have different advice for you. Then the other thing too is, are you changing up your training program? All right. Are you doing that? I think it was 4 exercises, 4 to 8 sets of reps. We'll pull it back up here in a minute. Remember, the NASM OPT model is designed to be undulating, right? We're not always designed to be stuck in one phase of training and stay there. So, we'll look at that in a second, because I want to make sure I reread it correctly. But, you could also potentially be overtraining, right? There's that. What's your recovery like? You could be putting so much cortisol into your body that maybe that's part of it. That's why I'd start with a really good blood work. Consider talking to a registered licensed dietitian. And when I look at 3 series of 4 to 8 reps for 4 exercises, that could lend to maintaining muscle mass. Now, at 218 pounds, if you're going to lose some body fat, you're going to lose some muscle mass as well. That's not a problem when you're carrying that much muscle mass. But maybe you need to get into more of a stabilization where there's longer time under tension, longer duration. Maybe move up to a power where there's going to be a different stimulus to the muscles. So that's a piece of information we don't have. 2 hours of cardio a week, so we don't know how much that's divided out. So those are my initial thoughts. It could easily be an overtraining and the cortisol is just ramped up. And I would start with the physical.
Yeah. And I have to say, 3 series of 4 to 8 reps. I mean, what are you trying to do there? I mean, is it, if it's just to gain muscle, like Marty said, I mean, what are your rest periods like? Are you doing the correct acute variables? Because if you're resting too long, you may not be really pushing yourself to the limit, and giving yourself too much rest isn't really stimulating the muscle and the hormonal growth that you're trying to achieve. So that's a big one as well. So to Marty's point, I mean, your body's going to adapt every 4 to 6 weeks. That's why we have the model. That's why we tell you to reassess then, and then change up what you're doing. So if you're always doing the same thing, your body is really not being challenged, then you're really not going to see any changes. So I would say, first and foremost, how long have you been doing this? And if you've been doing it a while, you definitely need to change it up, reassess your body, find out if there's compensation patterns, and then go through the model the way that it was intended to. If you're moving great and you've been stuck in phase 3, throw yourself into phase 2, and then maybe move into phase 4. And like to Marty's point, if you're working out, would you say 5 days a week, then you need to switch it up. Maybe, you're doing phase 2 on Monday, you're doing a phase 1 on Tuesday, maybe a phase 4 or something on Wednesday, take a day off, and then do power on Friday. So there's a lot of different ways that you could change it up, but also the 2 hours of cardio list. Why don't you do, instead of it being 2 hours every single week of the same type of cardio, we actually talked about this on another podcast. You have to switch it up. If you're always doing the bike, then go for a swim. If you're always rowing, then go on the treadmill. If you're always doing treadmill and you only have a treadmill, then do sprints someday, do inclines certain days, do longer walks, do longer runs. So you have to vary it up, because your body will become stagnant if you're doing the same thing all the time. So another thing to think about too is, are you really measuring your calories? Are you 100% positive that you're eating 1,700 calories? And the reason I say that is because people very much so overestimate how much they're eating, or underestimating, I guess. So basically they're saying, oh yeah, I just had a 500 calorie meal, when in all reality, if I broke it down, it was 800 calories. So they're eating more than they think they are. So that could also be something to look into as well.
Great advice.
Thanks.
So question 6, I'm looking for core exercises, recommendations for seniors with high blood pressure, but controlled meds and shoulder pain. Tia.
Well, I mean, I can start with this one. I mean, guys, when you say that they have shoulder pain, I mean, again, we always want to be careful with the word pain, because we're not doctors. But if it's discomfort and they can get to certain points, first of all, if they've been in constant pain with their shoulder, I usually have them seek a professional opinion. Maybe go and look at an MRI. Is something torn? Is it a torn muscle? Is it a labrum issue? Is it just they are super locked up, meaning that they're not doing the correctives the way that they need to. So they're not foam rolling certain muscles, they're not stretching certain muscles, and they're just stuck in internal rotation. So if they go into flexion, obviously they're anteriorly tilted. That can usually cause, quote, pain or discomfort and reduce range of motion. So when we look at it, I'm going to ask all of those questions first. What did the assessment show? Have they got any of that information? But when you're looking for core exercises, there's a lot of different things that you can do, that, like, bridges are core exercises. But again, are we looking at stabilization, strength, or power? So I would say go into high planks with taps, because again, you're still working the shoulder, but you're not putting a lot of pressure on it. Can they do Palloff presses? Does that bother their shoulder? I mean, you want to try to find exercises that are going to challenge the core, but then also at the same time not cause any, quote, discomfort. If they feel anything, then shut it down. And that's why we talk about having regressions and or progressions in everything that you choose. And then, with the high blood pressure, even though it's controlled with meds, just be careful doing things on the ground, standing up, on the ground, standing up, where they're changing from a prone to a supine, or a supine to standing very quickly, because that can also sometimes mess with someone's blood pressure. So I know I didn't provide that many exercises, but it's really hard to do that without knowing anything. But just because they're a senior doesn't mean anything, y'all. Age is just a number. So, I mean, just keep it safe and make sure that they can do it correctly with ideal form. And that's going to help. Marty, do you have specifics that you want to add?
No, you covered it all. Especially if their blood pressure is monitored, or medicated, and they have good blood pressure. To me, it's a non-issue at that point, right? Because, I'm going to have progressed them up anyway. So if I'm getting to more advanced exercises, I'll have seen that they can adapt and handle the loads I'm giving them. So it's a mental note that the first couple of times I work with them, okay, what happens if I get to a plank and then I have them stand up? But if they're having issues, then the medication's not working right. So we'd find that out pretty quickly. So I'm like you, just pay attention, but I would not have a major concern on this one at all.
But just remember, what are the easy ones? Bridges, I say easy, meaning the easy ones that any age can do. If they can get on the ground, bridges are great. Bird dogs are great. Even just doing dead bugs are great. There's a lot of things that you can do that don't require a lot of spinal movement. Again, I'm talking about specifically stabilization before we get into flexion, extension, and rotation. And then if they can handle the stabilization part first, you feel comfortable, then reassess them, move them up accordingly, and you should be well on your way.
Just focus on your breathing, but we would say that for every client.
Yes. Don't forget to breathe, right? It's part of life. So we always talk about the important reminders. You will see this slide every single time that Marty and I do questions from the group. We don't change it, and we don't change it for a reason, because everything's always going to start with, well, what does the assessment show? Because if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And so we are always going to start with that question first. So if you do send us specific questions, or if you go on Facebook and you want to put some questions on there, hopefully you will have that information to share so we can provide you with better information, because I'm not just going to randomly throw it out there. As you can see with our last senior question, how long has your client been working out? Are they familiar with basic movements? Can they do all 7 fundamental movement patterns correctly? If not, start there. That's where we want to make sure that we get those patterns down, because it's going to translate into better movement quality and the other exercises that you're going to do. Obviously, you need to know what their goals are. If somebody, like one of Carlos's people, comes up and says, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder, then okay, we have a goal, but where are we starting? So we need to know where our starting point is based on the assessments, and then where are their goals, and then look at it on how long would it take us to successfully get that person to that specific goal, or is it even something that's realistic? Reassess every 4 to 6 weeks, guys. As we said, the body gets stale after a while, so we want to make sure we're challenging it as much as we possibly can. Quality over quantity every single time. Follow the acute variables. If you have not done the OPT model and used the acute variables, then you are failing yourself and or your clients. And if you think phase 1 is just basic and easy, I will challenge you right now to get into the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints, squeeze your stomach, squeeze your butt, and give me 12 to 15 push-ups with the plus, going down for 4 seconds, holding for 2, and coming up, making sure your butt's in as tight as it possibly can the entire time. If you think that's easy, then, have a conversation with me. But I have yet to find one person, even people that have worked out a long time, that don't focus on the little muscles throughout, that has found this to be an easy phase. Phase 1 is very difficult for people that are new or people with compensation. So don't underestimate the power of phase 1, and don't think that everybody should start in phase 5, especially if they're an athlete, because they are probably broken down and should start in phase 1. So the acute variables, they're there for a reason. They have been researched, and it is a progression to get someone safely to phase 5. And don't overcomplicate it. Stay off of social media, y'all. There are so many things that are like, oh, I can stand on a Bozu ball, close my eyes, and use a body blade and touch my ankles. And it's like, what? So there's a lot of chaos out there. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple to start. And then at that point, you can become a little more creative. You can use the modalities that are out there as long as it makes sense. But don't start making it too hard, or your clients will get frustrated. You as a trainer are constantly having to harp on them on proper movement. And just know, what muscles are you trying to target? what are the simple exercises to target them first, and then you can add load or you can add different movement patterns to make it even harder, but only when that client is ready.
Well said.
Thanks.
So some key takeaways. Hopefully now you're aware of the NASM CPT Facebook page. We had somebody go search it up. So you make sure you are in that, and I would check it frequently and I would interact, and you're going to see great things happen. Are you following NASM's Instagram channel? So it's NAM_fitness. Great content going out there. So when she says don't follow social media, she means anything outside of NASM social media, right?
Well, don't follow it. Just make sure that you're following. Just because an influencer doesn't mean that they're certified. And I just want to make sure I throw it out there before I get hate mail, y'all. I look at Instagram too.
Run it through the model. Run it through the model. So key thing is, are you using all your resources? Hopefully we gave you some new resources today, and you're going to start using those. Stick to the model. You're going to do well if you stick to the OPT model, continue to try to master that. And then look how diverse it actually is. And we've done podcasts on that. And then let us help you ask questions. So when it looks like we've answered all the questions coming in from our live feed today, but just in case somebody throws one at the last second, while we're waiting for that, if you could give all these wonderful people your contact information, please.
Sure. If you guys have other questions and you didn't want to put it on the feed, I totally get it. John, again, awesome. Thanks for joining us as well. But you can always find me on Instagram at Wendy.Batts13. I am trying to get better at checking those messages, so just bear with me, y'all. And then you can also email me at wendy.batts@nasm.org.
Great. And my Instagram is dr.martymiller72. And my email is marty.miller@nasm.org.
Oh,
you're our favorite people too.
I know. Thanks for listening. You guys are great. So Marty, thanks for putting your knowledge in there. Again, I knew the book question as soon as I saw it on Facebook. I'm like, well, this is definitely going in. So
right. Love it. So Wendy, thanks for putting this together. All of you who joined us live today, thank you so much. And we always look forward to seeing you next week on the Master Instructor Roundtable.